Okay, so in 2024, it's almost impossible to find a bad gaming laptop. And because it's so hard to get a bad laptop, manufacturers have to find something special to stand out of the bunch. So this is the Gigabyte Aorus 16X, and its special trick is AI. Yes, I rolled my eyes when I first heard it, but I decided to approach it with a healthy skepticism. The reality is, we cannot escape AI invading every part of our lives. And if you've been paying attention to the news recently, Microsoft is leading the charge with its Copilot Plus PCs that are all about AI. But really, what Gigabyte is trying to sell us on is the baked-in AI features into this laptop that are supposed to improve battery efficiency and gaming performance by automatically tweaking system settings on the fly. But does it really work? Well, in this review, we're going to take a holistic look at the 16X in terms of its specs, its price, its design, its placement in the market, and if these AI features actually make a difference to you as a gamer. All right, starting with the design of the 16X. It's your typical gaming laptop. Black slab made with plastics, lots of RGB all around. You have a very subtle Aorus logo on the front, which is not RGB lit. It's got some cool elements on the chassis, on the keyboard deck, including the iridescent logo, as well as the very gamery Team Up Byte On slogan that goes across the touchpad. And while it is made out of plastic, it doesn't feel cheap. It does feel sturdy and solid with very little flex in the body. I would never call this a thin and light, coming in at 2.4 kilos, and it does measure about 2.7 centimeters thick, which is not terribly thick. It's a long way from the old Alienware laptops of back in the day, if you remember those. It comes in two colors, the midnight gray, which is what I have, and then the special Aurora gray, which is more of a metallic finish. They've got some aggressive cooling vents on the bottom. You've got more cooling vents on the sides as well as on the back. Of course, there is RGB lighting, with the keyboard having a 3-zone RGB lighting and these translucent keys, which is obviously in the theme of gamer-centric device. I'm not a fan of these because the legends are white and it makes it really hard to see them, especially with the RGB shining through. You've got a very unique RGB strip on the back, as well as a little projector that projects the Aorus logo type down on your surface. Of course, you can adjust all this RGB lighting in the Gigabyte control software. In terms of ports, you've got a good selection of ports on both sides. You've got a power port on the left, as well as an RJ45 for LAN. You've got an HDMI 2.1, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, and a Thunderbolt 4 port, which also supports power delivery and display out. So you can use this for a single cable connection to a monitor. On the other side, you get another USB-A Type C, a micro SD card slot, which is great for content creators who like to transfer stuff from their cameras direct to the laptop, and a 3.5mm combo jack. On the back, there are no ports of any kind, which is a bit of a bummer because it's nicer to have like your power port and your HDMI out on the back so that you don't have cables getting in the way. As for the display, you get a 16-inch Quad HD display with very minimal bezels all around that gives it a very nice sort of premium look. Above the screen, you have a 1080p webcam, which is acceptable, is decent, but more importantly, there's also an integrated IR blaster for Windows Hello facial recognition. I love this feature on any laptop because typing in passwords and PIN codes gets really old. I do feel the range is pretty short and you kind of have to hold it right up to your face to get it to recognize you, but it's still nice to have. Now, the display on the 16X is a little bit underwhelming. It's a IPS display with 165 Hz refresh rate and a 3 millisecond response time. I would have loved to have an option for an OLED display, 240 Hz. That said, it's got a rating of 400 nits of brightness, though I have read that it does exceed that, hitting more in the 500 nits of brightness. Sadly, that does not come with HDR of any kind, but other than that, you get great colors, great vibrancy. At 2560 by 1600, which is a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, the display is pixel sharp. Everything looks beautiful, crisp, sharp details. The display is perfectly acceptable for all kinds of work, your web browsing, your spreadsheets, your graphics design, your video editing, and it looks great in games too. The contrast was good, the colors were vibrant, and the motion clarity was excellent thanks to that 165 Hertz. Looking at the keyboard, there's nothing really special about it. It's got a good travel, 1.7 millimeters of travel. It feels not too mushy. I would have preferred something a bit more clicky, like one of those Cherry MX low profile keyboards that we find on some of the other laptops, but obviously that would add to the cost. And the 3-zone RGB lighting is kind of strange for a laptop in this price range. I would have expected per key RGB lighting. This makes this worse for the translucent keys since you can't adjust the color for those keys individually, which would have been helpful to improve the legibility. But yeah, typing on this keyboard, it's good enough. The Aura 16X has one of the best touchpads that I've seen on any gaming laptop. It's large and expansive with lots of room for your gestures. It's made of glass, so it's smooth and it just feels really nice to use. I should also say that the Aura 16X has some really good sounding speakers. The speakers do get loud. They are full body. They don't sound tinny at all. There's a good soundstage about them. I've watched plenty of movies with this, lots of YouTube, and everything just sounds really good on this laptop. Yes, you will still need to use headphones when you're doing some serious gaming, but for casual gaming, it will produce excellent sound. Okay, so let's talk specs and performance. Now, this particular model that I have is the top range model, which comes with an Intel Core i9-14900HX processor, which has a whopping 24 cores and 32 threads. So you can expect it to just chew through multi-threaded applications like video editing, rendering, and other kind of creative tasks. It does not have a dedicated NPU, which we'll talk about later when we get to the AI section. It comes with 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM and not one, but 2 NVMe SSDs, 1 terabyte each. So you'll never have to worry about that Call of Duty installation hogging up all your space. And of course, for graphics, we have the Nvidia GeForce RTX 4070 with a total TGP of 145 watts. So you can expect the performance out of this to be good. I ran the 16X through my standard benchmark tests that included Cinebench R23, Geekbench, 3D Mark Time Spy, and a few others. And as you can see from the results on the screen, this machine flies. For reference, the 16X scored 26,000 in Cinebench R2, which was approximately 20% faster than my i5 desktop right there. And that's impressive. It honestly blows my mind what some of these gaming laptops are able to do. In terms of gaming, it's the same story. We're looking at games running anywhere between 70 and 100 FPS at native QHD resolution, and even faster at 1080p. I'll put all the results up on the screen for you to see. I have no issues recommending this as a pure gaming machine. Of course, if you're going to play games like Valorant or CSGO 2, it will easily go way beyond the 165 Hz refresh rate. And what I also like is that the machine remains relatively cool under load. I measured temperatures of around 70s in the CPU and high 60s on the GPU. Noise is also pretty low. I'll give you a quick sample of what it sounds like under load. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room, the AI. So Gigabyte has created a suite of AI tools called the AI Nexus. The AI Nexus includes 3 primary tools. The first is the AI Power Gear, which is all about optimizing battery life. And the AI will automatically switch off and on the Nvidia RTX 4070 in order to save power when you're doing things like just browsing the web or working in a spreadsheet, but then turn it on when you crank up a game or when you open a video editor and start doing some editing, so that it gives you that extra boost for your workflow. Then AI Boost is all about raw performance. It overclocks the CPU and the GPU and manages the power and the fan profiles to give you the best performance for whatever scenario you're in. So you will see it switching. If you crank up a game, it will boost power to the GPU to give you the ultimate performance. If you turn on Cinebench, for example, it will boost the CPU to give you more powerful multi-threaded performance. Now, every setting in the AI Power Gear and the AI Boost can be manually set. You can pick from the profiles that already are baked into the software. But I figure that most people will just leave it on auto and let the AI figure out what you're doing. This generally works well, but I have found that the machine will often freeze for a couple of seconds as it switches profiles. So once I started up 3D Mark, for instance, the machine would switch the profile from the desktop mode to gaming mode, and it would give me the notification, but it would freeze for a couple of seconds and then it would get back to normal. It's a small annoyance, but nothing that you can't live with. And the last thing in the AI Nexus toolset is the AI generator. Now, we all know about image generation tools like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and DALL-E. Now, the beauty of this is that these generators will run off the native hardware and not using the cloud. So in theory, that should give you better performance. And then, of course, there is the Windows Copilot. Just hit the Copilot key and you can give it all sorts of commands, ask it all sorts of things. The interesting thing that I noticed was it doesn't necessarily run any faster on this machine than it does on my personal rig, which is not AI enabled in any way, which is the underlying problem with calling this machine an AI laptop. You see, it doesn't actually have a processor that has an NPU that supports AI. So really what Gigabyte has done here, as far as I can tell, is just some machine learning routines. The AI Nexus seems to be baked in. It's probably using some native files somewhere on the system. But what I'm saying is that it's not a true AI machine because it doesn't have the NPU to handle that. So really, you're not getting much out of the AI here. Right now, it just does some basic things like changing overall system settings. And in my testing, the difference in performance between the AI on and the AI off was about 7%. So in reality, that will be a difference between 30 frames per second and 33 frames per second. I will say the convenience of not having to fiddle around with fan profiles each time is welcome, but is it something that is going to make me recommend this laptop over any other laptop? No. And what I would hope to see in the future is something more like Nvidia's Chat Assist app, which essentially uses AI in real time on your machine to detect what game you're playing, detect the hardware that you have, and automatically fine-tune your machine and your game settings without you lifting a finger. Now, maybe in future iterations, we will see that happen, but for now, the AI tools in here are pretty limited and really nothing to talk about. It's just marketing. Lastly, I want to talk about battery life because that is always the Achilles heel of any gaming laptop. The battery life on the Gigabyte Aorus 16X is not bad. I was averaging about 4 to 5 hours of light tasks. Now, that's with the AI Boost enabled. I didn't really bother trying without the AI Boost. I mean, you might as well get as much of an advantage as you can. 4 to 5 hours is not terrible, but it's also not great. So especially if you are a student and you are expecting to have this laptop get you through a whole day of school, yeah, it's not going to do that. And of course, if you do want to game on the battery, expect it to last no more than an hour and a half at best. There's also fast charging. It will charge from 0 to 50% in 30 minutes, which is pretty good. And also, the fact that it has a Type-C port with power delivery means that you can plug it into a monitor and keep it charged while you do your work. Now, in terms of pricing, the Aorus 16 comes in a couple of variants. You get the one with a 14600 HX processor and a 4060 GPU that starts around $2,500 here in Australia, all the way up to this particular model with the i9 processor with a 4070 GPU at just over $3,000. That's not terrible pricing. We've seen much more expensive laptops in this category. If I had to choose, I would go for a lower spec model and save myself some money. You see, the RTX 4060 with Nvidia DLSS and frame generation is a perfectly capable GPU, but you'd still be getting well over 60 frames per second in most games today. Okay, so that's it about the Gigabyte Aorus 16X. It's a good gaming laptop, nothing too special. It performs excellently in games, running everything close to 100 frames per second at Quad HD, which is perfectly fine. Games look crisp, beautiful, the details, they're fluid, the responsiveness is excellent. You will have no problem gaming on this machine. Working on this machine is also good. I was able to do a lot of my reviews, writing on them, scripts, editing short form videos. It's good for your everyday sort of thing. However, battery life is still a problem. At just 4 to 5 hours, that's not great. I wouldn't be confident to have this without power nearby. But yeah, don't buy this laptop for the AI. The AI is an interesting prospect, and it's still very underbaked and not yet ready to be genuinely useful. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do we need AI in our gaming laptops? And if so, what would you like to see the AI do? If you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate a cheeky like and subscribe, because I've got a ton of cool content coming up. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.